You're listening to Bigfoot Society, and I'm Jeremiah Byron. In this show, we go beyond the campfire stories to bring you firsthand encounters from people who say they've seen something impossible, from backwoods trails and remote mountain haulers to quiet farms and crowded highways. The stories come from everywhere, and each one leaves us with more questions than answers. These are the voices of the people who've lived it, so settle in, because today you'll hear another account that just might change the way you see the woods forever. So stay with us. All right, Bigfoot Society, we've got the privilege of talking to the Vogel brothers today. We've got Tim and Eric here. I'm going to do just a little intro for them here. They were kind enough to provide some info. So, the Vogel brothers have been researching Bigfoot encounters, experiences, and reports since 2015. They've done investigations and expeditions for things like the BFRO and Squatch. They currently run the Cobble Mountain Critter Project, and they also provide the Let's Talk Bigfoot Talk presentations as a fundraiser for youth outdoor education, which is really cool. Well, welcome to the show, guys. How's it going today?
Hey,
how you doing? We're doing well. Glad to be here.
Beautiful day.
Awesome. And just for the listener's sake, do you mind introducing yourselves separately so they can get to know your voices before we start chatting?
Yeah, I'm Tim.
I'm Eric.
All right.
We're the Vogel brothers.
We got into this, I don't know, we've been out in the outdoors all of our life. So that's what kept us involved. So part of our thing is being in the woods, and we grew up that way. So that just kept us involved. And that's a little bit about it.
I love it. And guys, what was it that first got you into the Bigfoot subject out there in Massachusetts?
Yeah. Well, we were teenagers back in the 70s, 76 actually. And we went to see the movie Sasquatch, the Bigfoot. And it was in Agawam. It was over in the next town away from us. And it was in December. Or in November it was. And December was in the middle of the winter.
Yeah, you're shoveling your snow.
Yes.
Anyways, this thing here was out in Agawam at the Twin Cinemas. And we hiked, if you know the area, we walked, we call it a hike. It was from West Side to Agawam Mile. And it was Sasquatch, the legend of Bigfoot. And it was back in 76, and that's how we got introduced to it. It was something new to us. We were in the Boy Scouts, like Eric was saying. We grew up in the woods, and this thing was new to us, so it was kind of weird. It was different. And, you grow up thinking one way, and you heard all the, animals, and you heard about them all, and all of a sudden they throw this thing out there and say, what, come see this. And, it was Bigfoot. What the heck is a Bigfoot, So we did. We went over and checked it out, and that was kind of how we got into it.
Yeah, it was always a West Coast thing. It was never here.
Yeah.
So that was absolutely wild to us.
It turned into a bigger deal than just going to the movies. That ended up being, a few weeks later, there was tracks in our backyard and throughout the town in West Springfield and into Agawam, up the Westfield River, the railroad tracks and whatnot. And the tracks themselves went for probably a few miles, crossing the river on ice, up the railroad tracks, into our backyard, which was an apple orchard and a brook, goes back to the Westfield River near Mittenegg Park. And we could go as far as the park. That was, right. Or as the river.
As far as the river. We were just young, and once Dad said that was it, that was it.
Yeah. So we were just following the tracks.
But the tracks were out there, and that's what kept us. That's what kept us interested.
And then the media got involved, and the police got involved, and it became a whole to-do because all of a sudden, we've got these ginormous tracks in our yard, and it became a news media show. It was kind of interesting.
You can actually look it up.
Yeah, it's in one of the
1976 Agawam Bigfoot.
Yeah, it's out there,
and it's out there.
It's interesting because you guys just came up just a few days ago on the show. There was an individual that had a sighting in 2008 in Agawam, which is kind of the same area, right? And they brought up you which that situation you just referred to, which I believe was in Robinson State Park, correct? I think I found the newspaper for that. Yeah.
Correct. Yeah, it was almost, that's it. We're on the opposite side of the river of Robinson State Park.
Right on the other side of the dam.
So it literally came up the railroad tracks, walked through our backyard, and then it went down the river and back across into Robinson State Park. So yeah, that guy's got that story right.
Yeah.
That's really interesting. How what were the size of these tracks? Do you remember?
Geez, I want to say 20 inches. Yeah. Somewhere between, I think
That was
20
a
inches.
time ago.
17 to 20 inches. And it was a lot of snow. It was deep snow too.
Yeah, it had just snowed, so the snow was soft and it was deep.
Yeah, this guy had to work out. I mean, if you're a snowshoer and you did the walk that he did, it was a heck of a hike. It was a heck of a hike.
It was incredible.
Absolutely.
It ended up turning to be a hoax. It turned out to be one of the local. Yeah.
That's what you'll read at.
One of the locals ended up seeing the same movie that we did, and he wanted to freak out the kids in the neighborhood, so he cut himself out some plywood shoes, and off he went. And of course, this was a new phenomena here, and the people just went for it. And literally,
once it got out of hand, he didn't know what to do, so he didn't say anything.
Yeah, he was 16. I think,
scared,
when he did it.
Made sense.
Anyways, that was
that's how we got started.
But it was cool because they were all camped out in our backyard. We had, at that time, Bigfoot investigators in our backyard camped out looking for Bigfoot. So, we never thought it would go to this. We're sitting here talking to you about it, but, there it is, Yeah, that was pretty wild for an experience. And, a teenager, it really sparks the imagination,
Yeah. Especially when you've been out in the woods, for years.
And this thing doesn't exist in New England. At least you don't think it does.
Right.
And then 2013 rolls around.
Yeah, that's when really, that's when things really took off. It really sparked our interest was 2013.
Yeah, we had a business called the Cobble Mountain Outdoors, and we had that for nearly 20 years, and we did it as a guiding business, and we were certified New York State guides. We were guiding them. We were certified in everything. We used to do professional development, first aid certifications, you name it, rock climbing, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
We did all. And we spent a lot of time in New York paddling and portaging up in the St. Regis Wilderness and Cranberry.
The whole 9 yards.
Yeah, all up through there. And it was a great area. And so in 2013, Eric and I decided we were on our trips and, one of our weeks there, and we had a scout group or something. We were, touring up through there, and we decided we were going to go on vacation in that same area, and we did. So we went out. We did September, late September.
Yeah,
so the schools were in there.
All the schools went back. Everybody was off vacation. Schools were back in session. Yeah. And it was empty. We knew it was going to be, the Adirondacks would be empty. Everybody would be gone.
Back at work or what?
So it would be nice, quiet, and calm. Everything would start to come back to nature's normal, I would say. And we decided that's when we were going. So we packed up and off we went. We got out to Long Lake and we parked the car, took all the stuff and took off, and we started paddling. We got to the far end of Long Pond, and there was a campsite off to the left. And we decided, well, that was big enough for us. Everything else was kind of taken at the time.
Yeah, we were headed to another pond, but that was in the middle, so we stayed there.
Yeah, it was off to the left. It was a nice spot for us. So we set up camp and kind of straightened it up, because at first it was a little trashed.
It was trashed.
With trees and limbs, and so we kind of moved all of that out of the way. We never thought anything of it.
Eric and I worked as ridge runners on the Appalachian Trail years ago, and when we used to brush in trails, you'd throw a bunch of debris and dead sticks and logs and stuff in it to camouflage the trail or encourage people to stay out. That's exactly what this campsite looked like. It was tracked
I would say
spruce tops and limbs and stuff like that. It was loaded with it, and it was like, in the Adirondacks, that is very highly unusual. They're very well kept sites. They're marked, they're monitored. There's rangers out there. They don't play out there. They'll throw you out if you got too many people in the group. So it was one of those sites where it was like, what the heck is this? But it was one of those sites we wanted to stay at. So we put the effort in to clean it up. So, but anyways, that's where we were. And so after we made the site, we were going to go fishing, and we were going to go catch dinner. Actually, it was at this point, it was a dinner, and we were looking for dinner. So we get out there, and we don't take anything with us. I don't have a cell phone. Eric doesn't have a cell phone.
We didn't have cell phones.
Yeah. If anything, we would have had a digital camera.
Have one of those throwaways,
Yeah, it was crap.
Yeah, we didn't have nothing with us. Half the time it didn't work anyway.
And besides that, we were going out for dinner. So we took a fly box with some movie buggers and a 5-way fly rod, and off we went. And it ended up being like a fishing story. It was catching fish.
It was one of the best. If you were a fisherman, it was one of the best.
So he was catching fish.
One of the best days of fishing I ever had.
Yeah.
Every cast was a bass, or every third cast was a bass, and they were almost 5 pounds on a fly rod.
I felt like Miss Daisy driving the canoe.
I just told him to keep paddling. So
it was just all working to me.
I said, just keep paddling. I'll catch them. And that's all I did all afternoon. So we saw this stream off to the right, and he says, hey, let's go down the stream. And I says, all right. So we started going down into the stream, and
it gets a little crowded.
Yeah, it got crowded, all right.
It's like a single track mountain bike.
When you're in the front and there is no hope of seeing the outside of the other end, you spin around. I spun it around, and I said, you go in it. So
it wasn't that bad.
It was bad, let me tell you.
It was a braided stream. We went into it.
It was tough. It really was.
It was tough to navigate because you really couldn't tell which way to go. It was braided, so there was a lot of options, and we didn't know where we were going to end up because we'd never been down there. Well, we just kept following the current, and lo and behold, we ended up at a beaver dam. And we're going right to the beaver dam, and then I start fishing there at the beaver dam.
Yep, that was the first and last time I let him fish.
Yeah. So I cast over the beaver dam. I'm sitting in a canoe. I'm in the back and been working all this way. And I get to the beaver dam. I start fishing, and I cast over the beaver dam. And the beaver dam is about 4 feet high, and I'm head level with the top of the beaver dam at the lower portion of it. And anyway, I catch a fish, and this smallie, all we caught were smallmouth, and they're 3 to 5 pounds. If you ever catch smallmouth, they just bounce out of the water and dance. They're a lot of fun. So anyways, we were catching the fish, and this thing bounces out of the water and starts tail dancing. And the next thing you know,
all hell broke loose.
Actually, the one tree started shaking, and it was just all of a sudden, we're just sitting in a canoe fishing. It was like, hey, yeah, I got one, woohoo! And all of a sudden, this tree is starting to shake like it's in a snow globe. And then moments later, a second tree starts shaking. It's like, what the heck? So we got 2 trees shaking like they're in a snow globe, and then the roaring starts and growling and roaring.
And now we have to go back through this web of tree limbs,
So we're sitting there like, what is this?
Yeah.
And we're what the heck? So I'm still reeling in a fish, and all this roaring is going on, and we're like, what is going on with that? We don't know what it is. We can't see it, but the 2 trees are shaking literally like they're in snow.
New York at all. You can't see 10 feet in.
Yeah, it's a dark boreal forest.
Yeah,
it's dark.
You can't see in there.
And like I said, this is dinner, so we're going in there, and it was dark.
And it's dark inside at 4:00. Outside, it's still light out. So it's not bad. But let me tell you, when that thing started yelling or screaming or roaring, whatever you want to call it,
it was a mix of everything. Stuff starts coming out of the tree.
There's
whether whatever's out there is throwing it or it's breaking limbs, and
you couldn't even put something together to an animal in your mind to make that noise. And that really kind of freaked you out because you couldn't figure out what it was.
Yeah, no, nothing in the memory bank that was.
I mean,
what it was, So it was a freaky experience, and we're just sitting there. We're in the middle of nowhere, and all of a sudden, these trees are shaking, and it's going off.
And you could feel it. You could feel the yell. And,
oh yeah. It was like being at a Ted Nugent concert.
Yeah, you could feel the weight off for you. It was crazy.
Yeah. So, and actually, that's what made us start to move back. Because that's when
we started getting out.
Well, I actually wanted to go further, but the beaver dam was in front of me. And I was like, no way, we're out. So if you could picture the cartoon at this point, it breaks in half. I'm going one way, he's going the other. And that was kind of where we were at, because I wanted to see it, and he's like, "No, we're done." and it was that scary, actually, because you could feel it in your chest. You could feel actually your whole body when that thing roared. With the tone of it as it went high, the vibration in your body got.
We still had to paddle out of the stream to get away from whatever this thing was.
We had to find our way through.
And it wasn't that far away from the side of it. It would have to be 30 yards in, maybe.
Yeah. So as it got louder, we backed out because we actually thought whatever this thing is,
it never stopped shaking the trees, and it never stopped growling and yelling and making the noise that it did. It never ever stopped.
And we were noticing that, we actually say, "Hey, dude, that thing just hasn't even stopped." And it went on. This now has gone on for. By the time we actually backed out and got into the existing lake that we were in, was maybe 10 minutes, maybe 15, and this thing never ever stopped shaking.
No,
or the sound never ever stopped. So nothing took a breath. All right, because the sound never stopped. It continual sound of roaring
crazy
for almost 15 minutes, I'll bet. 10, 12, 15 minutes.
And I mean, it didn't really, we were out in the middle of the lake when it finally stopped.
Yeah.
As fast as it started, it just stopped.
Yeah.
And we just kind of sat there.
Yeah.
And we just kind of looked around like, what just happened?
And we're trying to, hey, what was that? Was that a bear? Was that a mountain lion? Were they fighting or something? What's going on over there?
You start paddling away, and then you're in a canoe 16 feet long. And all I said was, we're on the same side as this.
Yeah.
That's where our campsite was, on the same side as all of this took place, maybe 200 yards away.
Yeah, so there's no running to your car. Yeah. There's no,
we were too far away for that.
No Dunkin' Donuts, no nothing. It was paddle back to your scary little campsite that you had to clean all that debris out of, and you're wondering why. And now all of a sudden this. So, yeah, I'd say it was a long night that night, and
we had a fire all night long.
Yeah. We had a deer come through because we didn't really. We heard a deer come through.
It was crazy.
And then we got out of there that morning. Probably just the sun came up, we could paddle. So it was probably 5 o'clock, 5:30 in the morning. We're heading out.
Now you got to remember,
we're guides. We were guides up here for 10 or 15 years.
It's crazy.
We know this place very well, and this has never, ever, 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 ever happened ever. And this
right. Exactly. It never happened.
Yeah.
But then years later, a couple of years go by, and we started talking to people. We talking to different people that
Facebook,
because we didn't have Facebook at the time. So when we finally got into Facebook, or got a phone or got a computer that we could get into Facebook, we ran into other groups that were out there, and
people with the same experience.
You listen to their story, and it was like, hey, that happened to us.
Yeah.
We had this happen.
Yeah.
So we went back out there the following year or a year after, and we went out and we checked. I think it was the very next year we went out there, and we went right back to where we were, and we got in there. We measured the trees. The trees were 9 inches in diameter.
10 inches, give or take, 8 to 10 inches.
And almost 10 feet apart.
Yeah.
And these things were shaking like
they were in a snow globe.
Yeah, just like
surreal shape.
Crazy.
Very, very weird.
And you say,
and they were the only 2 trees in the whole forest.
And, we've been asked many times, was it a bear? Was it this? Well, the bear, if it was, it never, ever, ever stopped making a crazy loud scream noise. And if it were to hit the ground, you would have thought you would have heard a bear make a huffing sound or some type of noise. Yeah. But
But this year,
Yeah, it just didn't do that.
with the noise that never stopped at this point now, we had no clue, but not on Monday morning quarterback.
Yeah, that's what we're doing.
And now we believe there was multiple
It's a possibility.
Bigfoot there. And between the roaring, one got a breath and the other one is roaring. So you didn't really notice it.
Right.
And that may have been that's why we always took it as continual roaring, when they might have had multiples and they're, doing their thing and yelling and screaming and roaring just to scare us. And between them, it didn't sound like it stopped.
Well,
it was all different octaves and different tones. So it was, there's no way to decipher who did that or this. It was just a cacophony of roaring and screaming. It's bizarre.
And we turned around and we came to a conclusion later on that they were fishing. There could have been multiple, so we figured 3 at least. And they were fishing. They were pushing. Their hands are like big first baseman's mitts. These things are enormous.
A giant mitts, yeah.
So when you got 4 of those things pushing through the stream into a beaver dam.
Now, mind you, this is a small.
Yeah, it's just a
small creek coming into and it hits a beaver dam that's kind of apex in shape. So it's got a curve to it. And the curve is only, it's probably only 30 feet wide, 40 feet wide, this whole dam, this whole thing that it's holding back. And the stream coming in is only 4 or 5 feet wide. And it might be knee deep, if that. So if you got 2 or 3 Bigfoot and they're walking with their paws and their fingers or,
they're like,
whatever in their
mitts, yeah.
And as big as they are, it's like a wall moving whatever's in front of them down into that holding pen, we're calling it a beaver dam. And that's where they're pushing all this fish. And they were fine with us fishing all the way up until that point where I pulled the fish out. And that's when one of them dudes just had it. And they said, no, you're out. And they went off. And they said, no, this is our fishing hole. Get out. And that's exactly what they told us. And we left.
Wow, that is such a wild. I mean, I can see how that would push you into where you guys are today. That is just crazy. And there was no easy way to get out of there once you describe, how big the stream actually was. I mean, you're not getting out of there quick for sure.
No. Oh no. Not at all.
So that's what we think, and now, like I said, we're Monday morning quarterbacking this. But in 2013, we were just kind of cutting our teeth on this Bigfoot thing, really. We think we had an experience. We started hanging out with Squatchachusetts was a group at the time. We're local. We got involved with those guys. We got involved with the BFRO. And we did that for, almost 14, 15 years now we've been doing it. And now we're doing our own thing. We've got the Vogel brothers and we do the Cobble Mountain Critter Project. But throughout our investigations, gosh, we've had, Eric had,
I've had a Class A sighting.
Sure.
We've had
2016, 2018, we had a sighting.
Yeah, we've had a sighting through a FLIR and smell and
numerous encounters. Experiences
with a few people at the same time. So
really, that's the best part of when we talk about our experiences.
It's always been with a group of people most of the time.
We were leading expeditions, or we had groups of people with us. Yeah. There's multiple witnesses that can verify. It's not just guys coming up with a story. There's multiple,
and not just Bigfoot.
Orbs and other things.
Yeah.
Sure.
So it's kind of nutty.
Can you share one of those experiences where you were able to have a Class A sighting of one?
Yeah, I'm going to fill my coffee and let Eric tell you about his.
All right, go ahead.
Okay, well, all right. It started on a Friday night. We were up here at the camp. We had an expedition going on. There were about 12 people, maybe 14.
Yes, Western Mass.
And we pulled in, and we were all getting out of the cars, and all of a sudden these kids come running out of the woods, and adults, and they're saying someone's throwing rocks and they're yelling at us. And we're like, what? Tim's the ranger here at the camp, and he says, there's nobody here. And the teachers turned around and says, somebody is yelling and somebody is throwing rocks. So they're running out. We go in, but we couldn't find anything. We couldn't find anybody. Couldn't find any tracks, couldn't find anything. So the kids and the teachers took off because they didn't want to stay. So we all take off and we're sitting around the fire, we're talking, getting ready, having dinner. And then we're going to go out into the camp, and we're broken into groups. And each group had a FLIR. And I had a father and son with me go out into the field, and we're standing next to a tree. And it's about 1, 2 o'clock in the morning, and his son's looking at a mouse running around, and the gentleman I'm standing beside, we're just kind of talking to each other real low. And I looked across the field, and I see this orangish, reddish, no, a yellow orangish ball about the size of a beach ball. And it's about 30 feet in the air from where I'm looking at. It's a good over 100 yards away, but it's 1 in the morning and it's pitch black. And I looked at the gentleman beside me, and he looked at me. He looked back at the glowing ball, and we watched it for a good 10 seconds, and it just went up in the air and gone. We were like, what just happened? But we didn't say anything. We just kind of looked at each other.
And never experienced it.
Yeah.
I didn't even know.
Nothing is supposed to be over there. I mean, he's been a ranger here for almost, 15 years.
I didn't even know what a Nora was.
Yeah, and
You never heard of one.
So
that night.
There wasn't any, it's just an open lot. There's not supposed to be anything there. So the following day, we all get together. It's been raining now for about 4 days. So we all get together. Tim stayed here. He was teaching a fishing class for the state. So we turned around and we took off, and we went over to Savoy. We went to one spot, and nobody wanted to get out, and it was just raining too hard. So we drove to another spot deeper into Savoy, and it stopped. It slowed down enough to where most everybody went. There were a few people that didn't get out, but they said, we'll wait for you here. We said, okay. So we walked in, and we get in. We're hiking into this place called Balance Rock in Savoy. And there's always two gentlemen that come with the group that like to drop back, and they like to watch the group to see if the group is being watched.
Right. They kind of,
if that makes sense to you. And we had a father and son team go up in front of us. So I'm in with the group of about 9 or 10 people. We're walking up. We get up to Balance Rock. We're standing there. Everybody's listening. And we asked if anybody wanted to make a Bigfoot call. And this young boy says, yeah, I will. So he gives out a Bigfoot call. But I said to myself, I'm saying, wow, that thing, it was so soft and so quiet. I don't think they heard anything. Well, the 2 guys that were behind us come running up, and they said, hey, we've got whistles back here. And at the same time, the gentleman and the guy and the son up in the front sent the son back and he says, hey, we got some kind of knocking going on up here in the front. And we're like, what? So we just kind of walked in and fanned out in a 45. So we walked in, and I stood on this little rock. It had moss all around it, but the rock was showing. So I was standing on it. It was a higher elevation, not high enough, but it was high. So I'm standing there, and there were a dozen people in the woods, all looking. And I have an orange rain jacket, so I really stuck out. And I'm looking around. I don't see anything, and it's really quiet. So I kind of bent myself down at my knees so I could look lower to see if I could see leg movement or deer walking by or something. And I kind of noticed this big black thing that wasn't there a second ago. So I kind of stood up, and when I leaned to the left, this thing leaned to the left. And I went, what was that? And when I stood back up, it stood up and turned. And I went, what? And I said, oh, it's there. And I pointed, and I started running right at it. And there was a gentleman beside me with a GoPro, and there was another gentleman on the other side of him that saw the lower half. At the same time, I saw the upper half moving, and he ran into the same frame of the GoPro together, pointing in the same direction as I was. He saw the bottom, I saw the top.
You couldn't see anything.
And there was a tree laying down.
Yeah.
And the guy in the middle was standing right in front of a tree where this Bigfoot was standing.
Yeah, what are the odds?
Unbelievable.
So what you see is two people running, pointing at a tree.
Yeah, that's what you see, but it was there.
Ironic.
So we turned around and everybody else came over and we're looking around to see if we can find some tracks, and we can't find nothing.
Yeah.
And I'm going, that's crazy. It was there. And the other guy says, yeah, he says, I saw the legs move. And I says, I watched it turn. It teeter-tottered with me. I says, oh, I can't believe this. I said, and my brother's not with me. I said, that's impossible. This is crazy. I said, I got to get him back here. So when we went back to the camp, I said, Tim, you got to come with me tomorrow. You just got to. I says, you won't believe what happened. So I told him the whole story. We drive back up.
Yeah.
We go in. We get up to the Balance Rock, and we go in, and we're going through the whole story again. Showed him the rock where I was. We brought out the range finder and a tape measure. I had him walk to the tree where I saw it. I pulled out the range finder. It was 40 yards from me. And then I turned around and I said, Tim, start raising your hand. So he raised his hand. I said, no, got to go up. He got his hat.
Stick on a hat.
And then he went up.
On a stick.
So then he had to get a stick and go up with the hat. And it stopped about 8.5, 9 feet. And it was like I was looking at a sheet of plywood when I saw it. It had to be almost 4 feet wide. And I only saw part of it when it moved. And there was nothing there when that day that it happened. We went up there, and I'm going through the whole scenario. After we measured it, I was on one side of the tree, he was on the other, and he comes walking down the tree and he goes, wow, look at this. And there was a track, beautiful footprint track.
17.5 inches?
Yeah, 17.5, 8.5 inches wide at the top. And the heel was 4 inches deep, and it was 5.5 inches wide. It was a big track. And 7 feet away,
second track,
we found the ball of the second track of the other foot. And the reason why it was just the ball was because there was a root, and the toes caught the root, and it peeled the bark off the root, but you can't
disintegrated the root.
It just doesn't work.
It's an all rotted root.
So you get the ball, but when you put the ball of one foot with the footprint, they're at the same depth. So you know it was the same creature. But the two gentlemen that were on the other side of that path never saw it coming at them. And they were right there. The two gentlemen that were behind us, they came down the same path that this thing was headed, and they never saw it.
Yeah, so what does that tell you? Where does it go? Why did 12 people miss it? How did 12 people miss it? And why did we only get 2 tracks out of it?
Nothing moved. The trees never moved. There were no snapping. There was nothing. It was dead quiet.
Yeah.
But yet there's the track. There's a half a second track, and no one else saw this thing. It's crazy. So after he found it, we got a friend of ours to come back. He was on his way to a ball game. He turned around and he came back
we walked out to the end of the dirt road.
We met him at the dirt road.
Covered the tracks so they wouldn't be hit by animals or
we met him out on the dirt road. We got in his truck and we drove in.
Yeah. Before we drove in, we had a roar.
Yes, we were driving in. I was in the front, Tim was behind me on the passenger side.
Yeah.
And there was a roar that came up off of that top of the mountain that sounded just like the roar that we heard in New York.
And the depth and the
same, almost the same one. It was incredibly close together.
Roar.
And it must have been a warning setting out, here they come again, they're coming back in. So when we went in there, the other guy was standing there, he was looking at it, he goes, no, he says, I can't believe we didn't see that.
Yeah.
And there it was.
So we casted both tracks. So we have 2 casts. And like you said, one is it lacks toe prints, but it's got heel definition.
It's got the depth.
And it goes in real deep. So it shows you where the impact was, the initial fight or flight. Well, this thing takes off, lands, boom, gives you a full foot track. And then the second one is just the ball of the foot. And like he said, the reason why we cast it is because it's the same depth as the heel strike from the track before. So it shows you something the same weight made.
Normally here in New England, it's hard to get one track, never mind two.
Yeah. Huh. Why? I don't know, but that's definitely a cool conversation to have as well.
Wow, this is, guys, and that's
right at Savoy State Forest.
Yeah, that's in Savoy right here in Mass.
Yeah, I used to do a lot of outdoor stuff with my father growing up, and I've been to that Balancing Rock area. I know because I grew up in Northfield, and we would take Route 2 over, and I can't explain to people how wild the northwest corner of Massachusetts is. It is absolutely crazy. I'm just blown away. I mean, I can totally see that you would have that experience in Savoy. Isn't that the same area where Jonathan Wilk had his stuff too?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, same state forest. Yeah, wow. Different area, same state forest.
Matter of fact, he is the gentleman that I was referring to.
Okay.
He was a gentleman. We let him tell his own story, but
right, sure.
Yeah, it's
an incredible story. People can watch that on Small Town Monsters. Has a really good episode. I'll put the link in the show notes with him. But oh my goodness, that's awesome. I've heard so many things from Southwest Massachusetts, but not the Northwest corner. And man, I mean, just to make sure that I get it in, but something I ask in Massachusetts episodes, just in case, is there's got to be someone out there someday who has experienced something in Franklin County. I don't know if you're familiar with that area. It's further east, and you've got like Greenfield and Northfield and Gill and Warwick and all that good stuff. And have you guys ever heard anything from out in that area?
I have read stories from out in that area, yes.
There's not too many. There's the one I'm familiar with. You're talking about like a road crossing on Route 2, like on the Mohawk Trail.
Yeah.
No, that's the one we're talking about, Franklin County. There's not to be honest, it's just a weird place that doesn't get that much reports. I haven't had that many reports.
Yeah, we tried. We've gone in there and tried to pull out, get people to talk, open up to us. And
all the other counties have heavy reporting, but the other ones, like we've just had in Beckett, Blandford, Russell, in the hill towns of Western Mass, in the hill towns, we've got almost a dozen reports of between wood knocking and whoops, vocalizations. And one person said he's heard it, chatter kind of thing. So, but that's what he's saying. So we've had chatter, we've had whoops, and numerous wood knocking reports this year alone, just in our local area. And we get that through the Cobble Mountain Critter.
And really fall hasn't even come yet.
Right.
That's when most of the
June, October, November starts to really
harvest season,
Yeah, and when we say that, a lot of people think, corn and the farmers. No, right now the white oaks are dropping, and the oak forest. If you look at the oak forest at the 30,000 foot level, it's huge. So it's in the metric tons of oaks that are falling. It's feeding everything from the moles, voles to the turkeys to the deer to Bigfoot, everything in between. That's the harvest I'm talking about. And we have plenty. And right now, the white oaks are dropping, or they dropped in, was it the more in the summer, and the red oaks will be dropping a little bit later. And literally, when you walk around here on this property, it sounds like you need a hard hat because the oaks will fall and it's like, raining rocks.
Oh my goodness.
So there's plenty of food. I just think our area in let's say the Northeast is a quilted thing of vegetation. If you look at the big view, and there's fresh logging, which gives you certain foods. There's old growth, which gives you certain comforts, and there's other things that gives you, the farmland and the agriculture and the quiet. And, this is a network of geographic stuff that makes New England a great area. And for us, Western Mass has a bunch of that right here.
Oh, yeah. I think it doesn't get enough credit, all the stuff going on everywhere from the Quabbin to down in Mount Washington in the corner of Mass. There's a lot of crazy stuff going on. But, a pattern that I keep getting in reports when I talk to people for the podcast, is that over the years, there's a lot of people that have seen what they describe as like a white Bigfoot, kind of north of Springfield, Quabbin area, but it's really interesting.
Yeah.
Have you guys run into that?
No.
I've heard that stories. I've heard those stories too. I haven't seen it myself, but yeah, I've heard that story.
Yeah, I just listened to one of your latest podcasts. It was from, he's a musician.
Yep.
Geez. Anyway, he did a thing right there in Quabbin, and it was the white Bigfoot in Quabbin that you guys did a show on. It was great. And we had heard, investigating through the BFO in Squatchachusetts and other people talking, that they had seen, there's multiple reports, let's put it that way, of a white Bigfoot in that area.
Mm-hmm.
And then in 2023, my wife and I, we live right here on the Cobble Mountain Reservoir, and we have a 1,300 acre camp that abuts this property. And we were out, we call it a squatch ride. We go driving, and long story short, we go look up for Bigfoot. So it's a squatch ride. So we get our Dunkins and we're off with our coffee and driving along. And we come down Wildcat Road into the Quabbin Reservoir, and we look across the reservoir, and my wife happens to see this big white thing come walking out of the woods right down to the lake. And at that point, she gets my attention, and I'm looking over at it because she thought it might have been a sign that blew around or something. And she said, look at that, look at that. And so we stopped, and now we're looking across the lake. It might have been a half mile, 3/4 of a mile, which I live right above a lake, and I'm looking across the lake through my picture window right now, and I can see the shoreline a half mile away. So this thing wasn't that far away, but let's put it this way. When this thing walked down, it looked like it bent down and got a drink of water for a few minutes. It stood back up and walked back into the woods and then disappeared into the woods. What we never got was a profile shot. What I mean by that is when a deer or a moose or a bear, because that's what people are saying, oh, you saw a bear or a moose. Okay, great. That's what we saw. But this moose came down 60 feet of shoreline to the water. It drank and then walked backwards without ever turning around. If that moose or bear or something walked down to the water, it would turn around to walk back to the woods. It never did that. And the profile we were looking at was this tall, cylindrical white object that looked like it just went up and down to the water, got a drink potentially, and literally just walked back to the woods. We didn't ever get that side profile shot where you would normally get of an animal on four legs, that big side body shot. We never got that. So that leads me to believe we saw white Bigfoot right there in Cobble Mountain. So, hence the name Cobble Mountain Critter Project. We've had numerous accounts right here in my backyard, pretty much.
That's incredible. And I know that area has come up on the show before with Ernie. I was able to talk to
him.
And it's a wild area, dude. And you started a festival in that area too, correct?
Correct, yes. And I had Ernie as one of the speakers. We had Dave McCullough, Gene Tewksbury. We had a bunch of people here speaking. And Ernie Davro told his story on Drake Mountain, and what an incredible encounter he had. And so, he's of the mind, and he's got a lot of us thinking more on communication levels now. I've been hearing numerous reports. I've heard a number of reports where people have discussed hearing chatter lately. And that's kind of a new thing around here lately, and at least in the Western Mass area. Chatter, we don't hear that often, and you don't hear reports of it. But, it's starting like we've been around long enough to where people drive around and see in the local gas station or the store, hey, it's the Bigfoot guys. That's kind of the report we've got in town now. And we literally have these little wooden mailboxes we made and put up in like the Beckett Country Store. And it becomes the mailing station or the reporting station for Western Mass. And through these little, we go up there and have coffee and cryptids at the grinder shop. Oh, there might be two people that walk in. There might be nobody walk in. We don't care. But we're there to talk about Bigfoot locally. And so we're starting to open some doors. People are starting to reach out. And like I said, we literally have a dozen reports now that we probably wouldn't have gotten from people otherwise, between the library shows that we do, the talks that we give, whether it's a conference or a festival, or next week I'm heading down to Pennsylvania
out
for
there,
a talk.
so they'll talk to you.
Yeah, the more they know you, the more they can hear you, they trust you, they'll open up and you start to hear this stuff. With the Cobble Mountain Critter, that's kind of when we started this, we do these stories, and when we do the library portions and we make money on this, we only get a couple $100. So if you're a library listening and you want us to come out, we'll only a couple $100 to do a story. You get us for 2 hours. We come with our own cast. We have a half a dozen casts that we cast that a dozen people saw.
These are these are authentic casts. These aren't molds.
Yeah. So anyways, we turned our business into more of a fundraising effort. So when we go off and we do these talks, that money goes right into where we're sending kids to camp. We're involved with the town. The town police is making a badge for us. That's going to be the Russelltown, Montgomery, Russell Police, and we're going to use them as fundraiser patches. So we're involved with the town doing this, and that's going to be, we're giving away pine trees, like an Arbor Day thing. We're giving away pine trees, and we're up to 600 to 1,000. So that's a bit of money, and so these patches will help pay for that. These library talks help pay for that kind of stuff. That's what we're doing with our Cobble Mountain Critter project. So we investigate Bigfoot stuff as the Vogel brothers. We do business as the Cobble Mountain Critter project, and the kids benefit.
That's fantastic. My goodness. Do you think a lot of people are having sightings and interactions in this Cobble Mountain area and they're just not talking about it?
Oh, absolutely. There's no doubt about it.
Yeah, we actually did. There's a local brewery called Skyline Brewery, and they've been making a Cobble Mountain Critter beer for years now. And so when we had started the business, we didn't really think of working. There was no thought behind that. So here we are. We start a business, and all of a sudden we realize he's got a beer, and we start talking to each other. So we actually go there. When they open their IPA and they have that brew for that month, they had us come in and do a talk. I believe it was in March. And so we talked about the Cobble Mountain Critter, and they broke out the new Cobble Mountain Critter beer. And it was a big to-do, and it was a lot of fun. And there was a lot of stories on that. A lot of people came out and said, hey, blah, 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 and this and that. And there's different names. State Trooper had some howls at 2:00 in the morning. Eric, my brother, did a report on fishermen up there getting howls and screams. The legends go way back up there. Right here in my backyard, Cobble Mountain.
Man, that is absolutely fantastic. And it's great to hear someone call it grinders, because I say that out here in the Midwest and everyone thinks I'm crazy because they don't get it. What I'm talking about. But yeah. So you guys have been involved with a lot of investigations over the years. Are there any that really stick out that are like, that was a crazy thing that we were involved with looking into for the BFRO or Squatchachusetts that you could share?
We did. It was actually on our own, and it was we were doing a school group. We had a business called Cobble Mountain Outdoors. It was an adventure education business.
So when we say that we've been doing this a long time and we're in the woods all the time, this is why.
This goes back to 1990 when we started the business. So 1998 when it was legit, I guess. So we've been doing this stuff for a long time. And we were in Northwest Connecticut providing a ropes course, a high ropes course for a school group.
Yeah.
It was a Catholic school group, and there's 30 kids, two teachers, and Eric and myself. And we've got them for the whole weekend. So it's a team building event up on the mountain, which is pretty remote. And there is 0 people around the area. There's 0 people. There are 0 people in the area. Put it that way.
There's nothing there.
Southern
mountain all by itself.
Yeah, it's southern. It's on the Appalachian Trail, but west of it, and it's in between the Taconics and the AT. So there's no easy way to get into it outside of a trail. So, anyways, it's a hard place to get to. That's my point. So we're doing a ropes course. And we've been doing ropes courses here for 15 years, and we've never had this issue.
And we've been on that mountain numerous times up and down it. The only thing on the top of it is a chimney. There used to be a house, and it burnt down, so it's a chimney. And And the schools take kids up there, classes and whatnot, and they go up there and they sit there and they reflect and whatever. So the chimney is being used all the time, and there's nothing up there. It's just mountain, chimney, and trees.
Yeah. So at this time, me and Eric are making dinner. We're down at our campsite. We're cooking dinner, and the teachers and the kids are up at this chimney. And it's a bit of a hike, and it's pretty steep to get to it. And then, in the 30s and 40s, that was a big thing. Cabins on mountains till they all burnt down. They were called summit houses.
Yeah, they had an old rope, tow rope, ski slope. Yeah, ski slope there.
So, anyways, that's all gone. So there's nothing up there. Anyway, these guys come down from their Bible study. Eric and I are done cooking. And we're fixing to hand it out, and we're, doing burgers and whatnot. And, everybody's at this point just about ready to sit down and eat. And at that point,
I was pouring coffee.
Yeah.
And Tim was standing on my right, and the pastor was on my left. And out of nowhere, you heard this siren sound, like somebody flipped the switch and turned it on. It just went, wah! But it went on for 15, 20 seconds.
It sounded like the highest tone of a police
on top of the mountain. And now the pastor standing there, his eyes are like $half, and he just looks at me, and I said, yep.
And they just left the mountain.
I said, Tim, and he goes, yep, Bigfoot.
So the preacher's all freaked out. I said, he came over. Yeah.
He looked over at the pastor and says, and he came over on the ark. Oh, should have seen the look on his face.
You guys said that? Yeah. That's hilarious.
Oh, yeah.
We've been talking Bigfoot all weekend, and of course it's bizarre.
And they thought we were crazy until this happened.
And then all of a sudden something bizarre happened. And literally it came from an area where they believed they were just at. No explaining it. Literally, it sounded like a police car at its very highest tone.
And of course, when we went looking it up, we had other people say that they've heard that same sound.
Yeah, other reports, we've had this high-pitched siren sound. Yeah. So that would have been related to today, it would have been a whistle. Now, we say it was a siren sound, but that would have been
a very high-pitched, powerful whistle.
So now we're finishing dinner. We had our fun. Ha, ha, ha. That was Bigfoot. And they all got the point and laugh. And so Eric and I walk off in humiliation. No. So we had fun with it. We go back. We're finishing the night. And it's kind of getting dark, and the owls are kicking up. And it's, that kind of thing going on.
And if you know owls, they're territorial.
And there's probably a half a dozen, maybe more owls, and it sounds like they're fighting.
And we've been down here for years, and this really never happens. Never. You hear the coyotes once in a while across the swamp.
We heard something similar in New York where they were territorial and fighting, but not like this. This was crazy.
Having the owls going after each other like that, and then we heard
coyotes
all night long.
They were going off like they had just gotten a fresh kill.
That's what it sounded like. It was
on a fresh kill.
Yeah,
that's what it sounded like. It was absolutely nuts, and we've only heard it a few times. Heard plenty of coyotes, but
it was on our side of the swamp this time, not on the other side, where usually it's on the other side. Now,
farms,
we're set up. Tim's in a tent. I'm in a hammock, and I'm laying there. I get in there, and I'm laying there, and I said, man. I said, all of a sudden you could hear them. You could hear
coming down the mountain.
They were on our side. They were coming down the mountain. You literally could hear them hitting the ground.
Coyotes are running down
And I yelled over to Tim, and I says, man, I hope I'm high enough, And I have an underquilt that goes under my hammock.
Taco.
And yeah, I'm like a taco. So you can hear them. They're thundering down the mountain, and they're coming right at me. And I just yelled to them. I said, here they come. And I felt my underquilt move as it went underneath my hammock. And they went right by him and I down the mountain, off into the woods somewhere.
Yeah, doing the crazy coyote yipping. Yeah, it was nuts.
I've never had that ever in my life. I was like, you got to be kidding me.
Yeah, that was close. So that in itself, it was a very excited night. The atmosphere was excited. The coyotes, the owls, that Bigfoot scream, that was probably...
We never, ever had any of that on our side. Everything, most of the noises and stuff came from the farm side, which is to be expected because there's food over there for every critter out there.
Yeah.
never on our side, but everything was happening on our side that night.
Yeah, it was the coyotes.
So we got up that morning. We finished off the ropes course. We went back. We started packing up.
Yeah, the group leaves,
and we're standing there. We're talking to each other, and all of a sudden there's a tree. Yeah, there's a tree laying down. It has to be what?
This is a full-size oak tree that has a full green canopy.
Yeah, it just fell over. It had
60 to 90 feet across in the canopy. At least it's got all the leaves on it. It's like a blowdown in a thunderstorm.
It just fell over. And all of a sudden you hear something coming through all of these leaves and these tree limbs and sticks. And it hits the ground, and it's a rock the size of a candle pinball.
Yeah.
And I went, what?
Just 15 feet or
it was
10 feet away.
That far from us. I was like, what is that?
Yeah.
And I just looked at him and I said, yeah, it's time to go.
Yeah. And prior to that, we heard noises behind the tree, and we thought it was just a deer. Kind of didn't even really give it a second thought. But after you could hear that rock come flying through and hitting all those branches all the way through it, and then it landed, and all of a sudden, like, what?
That's probably one of the craziest ones.
Do you think it's because the other group left and you guys are still hanging out?
I think there's a symbiotic relationship with the coyotes and maybe the owls. Bigfoot has been mimicking owls, and I have reports and know people that have Class A sightings watching a Bigfoot do it and making the sightings, and he thought it was an owl. So we know the Bigfoots make owl calls, so probably it's a camouflage tactic. And the coyotes, they might just, work together. Coyotes might go get something. Big boy walks in, there's an owl, and
Bigfoot comes in and takes it away.
Doesn't say it happens on all their kills, but potentially on some of them. And that's why all three were together, and all three were excited. We had a Bigfoot, what we believe a whistle, hours before all this. The owls started up very uncanny. It was very different the way they behaved. And the coyotes were from the top of the mountain all the way down like they had a kill. And it's kind of weird because generally around the kill, they're all in one area. And they're making all that noise because they're excited. They're excited and they're running like hell down the mountain and they're still yipping. And I don't know, if you learned behaviors and stuff like that, it was an odd behavior. And that's what we noticed now. So it was an odd behavior. All three behaviors were at the same time. Is it linked together? Possibly. Maybe the coyotes had something and the Bigfoot wanted it and we interrupted it.
Wow, that makes sense. Did you just say that you got a report where someone had seen a Bigfoot mimicking an owl sound?
Yep, right here in our camp.
Wow.
Yeah, I'm not going to give his name, but he's a local here. He called the police. Actually, his first thing, he called the police and made a report to the chief. Now, I don't really know the chief at this time. I've been here 5 years, so this is all kind of new to me. I don't really know the chief. So the chief comes up to me and says, "Hi, I'm the chief, blah, blah, blah." I introduce myself, blah, blah, blah. He says, "I've got a hunter that's got a concern." He made a report. And I had already seen this report on, I think it was the BFRO site or something, and called the guy, talked to the guy. And so when the chief came, I already knew what he was looking at when he said, "I've got this odd report I have to talk to you about." I said, "Oh, is it about Bigfoot?" And he says, "Oh, you know?" So I said, "Well, I don't know. Let's share stories and see if we're talking about the same thing." So the chief gave me his story, which turned out to be the same story I heard from, the guy himself. And he and his son were out in the back of the property here, just a little ways away from my house. And he was down in the swamp. His kid was up on the hill, and he was hearing what I'm going to call the berry white tone owl. It was a very low toned owl. It was too low to be the normal sound owl. If you've heard the like I just did on, that's an owl sound. It's not now add that a super low tone to it and put Barry White's voice on it. That's what it comes out to be. So that's what this guy's describing to me. It's a Barry White sounding owl. That's what I'm trying to wrap my head around this. I said, okay. So anyways, he calls his kid at the top of the mountain, and he says, "Hey, are you doing that sound?" Kid says, "No, I thought it was you." He says, "All right, let's get the heck out of here." So they come down, they meet at the stream, they walk up to the quad, and they're going to drive out. And on their way out, walking to the quad, Dad turns around and sees this Bigfoot. He thinks it's a Bigfoot crossing, just kind of walking across the path way down, and he sees this movement and this large object walking across the path. So he makes his report. The chief comes up, does his report. I go back out there a couple days later with this guy with no real hopes of finding any evidence. And lo and behold, first off, this guy didn't want to go back. I had to go back in the woods there myself. He would not go back with me. I went back to the spot, and I came back with a picture of a dollar bill in a track, in a Bigfoot track. This track was located in the top of moss, this stuff called sphagnum moss. It's really spongy and really thick. And this Bigfoot had enough weight to compress it, enough to keep a shape in it, to look like a foot, to where I put a full dollar in it, and it was probably, I'm going to say 14, 15 inches long. Maybe a little bit bigger, but I didn't really tape it out. I put the dollar in it for reference, took the picture, and I got out of there. And I went back and I said, I think I might have some verification for your story. And I showed him the track where I found it. He said, that's exactly where I saw it. And when he said he saw it, you could kind of where he was, you could see that area where if it was a Bigfoot, it was if you're looking down a trail, it's kind of wooded on either side of the trail. And you got this long hallway of trees sort of, and this Bigfoot crossing at the end of the hall. That's what he said he saw. And that's what I went down there and I saw a track. So I took it. It was it's rough substrate out here. It's leaves, it's oaks, it's dirt, it's rock. It's really tough stuff. So it's hard to get a track. And this happened. This foot landed straight in the middle of a sphagnum moss patch, and it was just one. We actually did find another one, but it was disturbance in the leaves, and it was 5-6 feet away. But couldn't really say that was a Bigfoot. But that's right here, half mile, not even a half mile from my house.
Oh my goodness.
Right in my backyard.
Incredible. It's incredible you have the rapport like that with the local police chief where they're coming to you too.
Yeah. No, we do the Russell Family Fun Day. We're involved with that as the Cobble Mountain Critter Project. And like I said, next year we're going to be handing out pine trees, and we're using their police badge. They're putting our logo on their police badge, and that'll be a fundraiser for pine trees so we can hand those out. And then we do trunk or treat. So if there's anybody in Western Mass looking to help out with trunk or treat, that's October 21st. Yeah, you check it out on the Russell Police page. They want to get some paranormal people out there and, just make it big and fun. That's all. So, yeah, being Bigfoot and being in the community is the only way to get these people to talk to you. And, you're not so new to them anymore. You're not so scary anymore. You're just the Bigfoot guys in Cumberland Farms getting a coffee.
I feel like that's a huge, huge lesson for people to learn that are listening about, just be nice, help out with the community, and stuff will probably happen for you. Guys, it's been such a pleasure chatting with you, Tim and Eric. And do you mind just taking a few minutes to remind people how they can, keep up to date with what you're doing, maybe talk about the festival? I don't know if the festival is going to be back for year 2, how they can contact you and all that good stuff.
All right. Well,
that's a good question.
For contacting us, you can go to the Vogel Brothers Facebook page, and Eric and I are there. You just leave a message, print out whatever you need to. That's the Vogel Brothers on Facebook. Then we have the Cobble Mountain Critter page, and that hosts our outdoor education mostly on that page. And then we have
you'll see us on Instagram.
Oh yeah, Instagram and whatever Eric does. We're really not a social media giant. We don't really get into all that stuff. We're more about research and get boots on the ground stuff than we are advertising. So anyways, we'll probably change that down the road. But anyways, we also do the Cobble Mountain Critter Festival. At least we did that last year. Turned out to be really great. We had a lot of rain in June. Yeah. We're looking to do it again.
Yeah, rain. We had some rains, but we had, the people came out. They helped support it, which was really good.
Yeah, for a first time event out in Western Mass, we had over 300 people show up in the middle of a rain for the festival. So we were very happy with those numbers. This year, we might do, not this year, we're going to set it up for next year. I believe we're changing up. We're going to do a researcher rendezvous, and we're inviting any local meaning Northeast investigators, research, through the East Coast, Northeast. We want to talk with you. We're interested about sharing information. We don't have a collective database where we can go and do all this stuff at. So we're going to provide a place. We're at the camp here in Russell, Mass. We have 1,300 acres. We got a huge building. I've got over 150 tents. If we do it at the right time of year, you can stay at. So anyways, we're going to do a researcher rendezvous, I believe, in 26. And then in 27, we're going to bring back the festival. And again, the festival showcases new researchers, new talent coming in, people you're not going to recognize most likely. Some people might, they're locals that they investigate locally for, but it's not a lot of big names. And these people are boots on the ground, and they're getting it done, and they deserve recognition. And there's not a lot of platforms for these people to get recognition. So the festival started in that vein to bring light to people that didn't have big names and big money and things like that. We're just people, making it day by day, having fun, spending our money, our own earnings and our own time, chasing around Bigfoot. And really, that's it.
Guys, I love it. You guys get it. It is so good talking to you guys. And that idea for the future with the festival and the researcher rendezvous, man, you are on the right path. Keep going. And just thank you so much to both of you, Tim and Eric Vogel, for coming on the show and sharing what you've experienced and what's going on out there in Massachusetts.
Hey, thanks for having us on. Appreciate it.
Looking forward to part 2.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Bigfoot Society podcast. Every encounter we share reminds us that the world is bigger and stranger than we think, and that the truth is often hiding just beyond the tree line. If you enjoyed this episode, please be sure to subscribe to the channel on YouTube, hit the bell so you don't miss the next episode, and share this with a friend who's into mysteries, monsters, or the unexplained. And if you're listening to us on Spotify or Apple Podcast, please follow the show there and leave us a 5-star positive review, because all that helps more people discover the show. And remember, if you or someone you know has had a Bigfoot sighting, please, I'd love to hear from you. So email me at bigfootsociety@gmail.com. and let's start the conversation. If you haven't gotten a chance yet, check out our membership community over at www.bigfootsocietypodcast.com, and that's where you can hear tomorrow's episode today early and ad-free, and members-only episodes every week. Also, it's a place to connect with other people that are into the Bigfoot subject as much as you are. Thanks again for following along with the Bigfoot Society. Until next time, keep your eyes open, trust your gut, and never stop asking what else might be out there, and see you in the woods.